Hello there, I didn't see you there. Hello again, welcome back to my weekly Writer's Life vlog, where I talk about my writing process, challenges, and struggles, and I offer a little bit of writing advice and inspiration along the way. This time around, I'm going to be talking really quickly about my quick update, and the strangeness that is going to be happening this week and next week for the channel, and after that I'm going to be covering rather quickly and swiftly my thoughts on first chapter Woes. Now, the most astute of you out there may realize that I sound a little different, as though I am a little bit more tired than usual, and I am actually a little bit tired today. It's because I've been spending the whole week working and preparing things, because next week I'm not gonna be here. I'm not gonna be here at my desk preparing the blog and the queue and all those things you love, because I'm gonna be at Fanimecon 2015. Max said for like the 100th time in the past month. But no, yeah, I'm gonna be at the convention in San Jose, California from the 21st to the 25th of May. I already made an announcement video. I am just gonna make it very clear that if you haven't heard about it and for some reason you live in the area and you want to come say hi to me, you can. I'm gonna be in the convention all 4 days. Anyways, yeah, you know, Fanimecon 2015, San Jose, California, 21st through the 25th, Labor Day weekend. I'm gonna be there all 5 days. Anyways, I haven't been able to write, though I am going to get back into writing as soon as I come back. I have changed my schedule, I've done a bunch of changes, so I can finally get back to doing the thing that I love, which is writing. But in the meantime, I prepared a bunch of videos, I prepared a bunch of other stuff, I prepared a bunch of posts, made changes to the blog, and did a lot of stuff behind the curtain. That's why I've been really tired. I've been dedicating most of my time to things that are not exactly fun, which is, you know, the best way to not be having fun is to not actually be doing fun things. But still, as aside, I'm actually excited for one, the convention, because it's gonna be silly and fun, and I love Fanime. It is the one convention that I go to, so if you do want to meet me in person, give me a hug, a handshake, talk about our OCs. It's the perfect chance for that. I know that it's gonna be tons of fun. And aside from that, the best part is that as soon as I come back, I'm gonna have a huge, enormous chance to finally get back into writing. There are a lot of books that I wanna write, a lot of stuff out there that I wanna get done, so I wanna get back into the flow of things. I'm really excited to get back into writing at last. Though, truth be told, I haven't been writing, though, I mean, when it comes down to stats, there ain't no stats this week. There ain't no stats this week, because I've just been making videos, making prompts, and focusing on those things. But as soon as I come back, things are gonna get started. So you better prep yourselves, you better actually get some works done, some writing done in the meantime, to get ahead, because as soon as I come in, I'm gonna come in running. But anyhow, oh, and also a really quick mini announcement. Next week, there won't be a vlog on Monday. A vlog, excuse me, on Monday. It's gonna come up on Wednesday, because on Monday I'm still gonna be at the convention, so I can't even do anything about it. I think I'm gonna get home on Monday or Tuesday, and then I'll shoot a vlog on Tuesday, really quick, Fanime vlog, and I'll just talk about my experience, the things that happened, the people I met, and the swag that, you know, I got through Kitty, because she just spoils me. But anyhow, all things said, all those announcements and not too exciting things out of the way, let's talk about a couple of questions that I received relatively recently. I always get questions about the first line and the first chapter, you know, or first chapter woes as you would like to call them. But recently I got a question. I think it was a question through Tumblr, I think. And it was around the lines of this. And it was like, Max, where do you begin stories? And ironically, there's a quote that I like to bring up, and I like to bring up and fix because people take it wrongly. But there's a quote, and I forget who said it, but there's a quote that goes, start the story as close to the end as possible. And people hear that and they go like, oh, so like, what do you mean, just start it at the end? And I'm like, no, you're missing the principle here. Allow me to fix this quote, this rather famous quote. Start the story as far away from the beginning as possible. Why this? Why this? Why this? I read a lot of classical fantasy growing up. When I attended high school, I read a lot of fantasy, because I'm a giant nerd. That was back when my high school still had, like fantasy literature as one of the courses you could take. Yeah, it was like, after taking English 2, you could take, like, general literature, poetry, or fantasy literature, and I was like, yeah, sign me up for that. Max said without realizing that the class would be slightly awful. So Max, what do you think the shadow creature symbolizes? I'm like, it's a shadow creature, it's a monster, it came from the other side of the moon, that's why the character is fighting it. Yes, Max, but what do you think it symbolizes? It symbolizes a monster. It's a monster that the person has to fight, because the monster wants to destroy the world. Yes, Max, but what do you think the monster symbolizes for this character? Literature classes are pretty silly. Silliness aside, why do I have an issue with classic, well, I don't want to say classic, but fantasy literature? Fantasy literature does a lot of opening up with the origin of the world, and a lot of history, and a lot of things that are not, I was going to say immediately relevant to the reader, but the reality is that they are not relevant to the reader at all. This week's Virtual Writing Academy that is going to go up on Wednesday tackles this slightly, but allow me to extrapolate on beginning stories. Where do I begin stories? There is a Latin phrase called in medias res, which literally means in the middle of things. It's one of those really fancy words that literally just mean in the middle of things. I like to start my stories in the middle of something happening. Why? And why not having like a giant sort of fantasy movie here? The world began 27 million years ago when the gods fell. I don't think it's as effective, and I don't think it's a bad thing to start stories like that. I don't think so. I think they can be effective at times, but I feel that ultimately, none of those things give urgency to the reader. None of those things are relevant to the reader from the beginning, and it's one of those things where like people give the first chapter a lot of importance, while in reality, I believe the first chapter is important. Sure, you know what's more important than the first chapter? The second chapter, and more important than the second, the chapter that follows that, and that follows that. Because it's not a matter of hooking the readers to continue to hook the reader. And I think that starting a story with something happening, with in the middle of something going on, it gives the reader not only a sense of urgency because they want to know what the hell is going on, but also a sense of interest and curiosity. We're curious creatures. I'm not selling this as anything else other than what I like and how I feel about fiction in general, but to me, history, or you could call it backstory, is only relevant to me. I only care about it when the characters care about it, when there's some sort of connection between the two. And when it's just like setting up things, I almost kind of feel like there's no need for it. You can just tell me, hey, this is the kingdom of the dwarves, that is what it looks like, this is what it is like, as opposed to giving me the entire history of how the dwarves came to be. That is nice, but if the characters don't care about it, then I am probably gonna read it and understand it, acknowledge it, and it's gonna go through the other side of my head because I'm in this for the characters. And that's me. I love stories for character. To me, writing is all about the characters, their interactions, their struggles, their rises and their falls. That's the fun for me. World building is cool, and there are worlds that I really like. But as I've said in the past, if I don't care for the people in this world, then I ultimately don't care about the world. That is not to say that the world itself is not important. It is. But I think that there has to be sort of like a connection. And usually for me, and this returns to the idea of first chapter woes. First chapters that begin with a lot of exposition, with a lot of explaining, with a lot of history, they're not fun for me. And it's not because they're facts and history and backstory and world building. It's not that. It's because I don't have a point of reference for those things. Maybe my focus character is going to be super all about how the dwarves came to be. Awesome, but unless I know that, I have no reason to care about all of this history. Now, once again, getting back to the actual point, where do I like to begin stories? Where does the book begin? What is the first chapter? To overcome the first chapter woes, if you may. There is a phrase that I like to bring up, an idea that I like to bring up, and it is the fact that when starting stories, I like to begin them as though the narrator is sharing the story with somebody. Now, you may be thinking to yourselves, okay, this answer tells me nothing. I think it does, because let's pretend you're actually going to be, like, you were writing the story as though you're sharing it with a friend. Would you start the story with history and facts that are not relevant to the story? Because here's the thing. Because when I say that I don't like history and facts that are not relevant to the story, I'm not talking about the sort of stories that literally spoil the entire plot from the beginning. I actually like those. I like a story that starts with history or some sort of premonition that since I have no point of reference to, I will probably read to, forget about, experience the story, and when I pick up the book again, I'll realize, holy crap, you told me this entire story in the first page. That's cool. But since I didn't have any point of reference, I experience the story anyway. I like that, but the reason is that was thoughtful, that was put there on purpose. And when I say that, when you are writing the stories or you're sharing it with a friend, you wouldn't give them details that are not important. So I like to enter that sort of storyteller mind, because ultimately, we're telling a story, right? So if I was this narrator, the narrator for the story, and I was going to be sharing it with a person, not with the faceless void, but with an actual person, where would the story begin? What would be the most fun point to start the story? And it is right about that point that I start brainstorming really interesting ideas. Because I like that quote that I told you, like, start as close to the ending as possible, or as I like to rephrase it, is start as far away from the beginning as possible. And, for instance, let me give you an example. If I was going to be writing a story about a heist, or rather, about a group of characters who steal things for a living, and more importantly, how things go wrong after they steal things, you know where I would begin the story? I probably wouldn't start it at the heist. I would start it at the point where everything goes wrong in the middle of the heist. Why? Because it's not only a point of action where things are happening and there are going to be questions and urgency, and the reader gets to kind of be involved in this as though there's somebody in the middle of this heist going wrong, but also because I don't have to give you a setup, I don't have to give you expectations, I don't have to give you nothing, but just push you along through the actions of the other characters. Again, I've told you a million times in the past, and I'm gonna tell you again, books for me are all about character. So literally whenever I'm brainstorming, I'm like, what would be the most fun way to start the story? What would be the most fun way to have this chapter? And I could do an entire video about trimming away the not exciting bits, but I will not go there too far, because I totally could ramble about this, and this video is already like 15 minutes long anyway. But it's the general idea of whenever I'm stuck somewhere, whether it is the beginning, the middle, the end, any scene around the story, I like to ask myself, how can I make this fun? And you need to understand is that means something different to everyone. There are people out there who are all about the world building, and that's okay. That ain't me. But then again, I'm not claiming this as anything anything else other than my advice, my opinion, and what works for me. Now, for me, what does fun mean? I am all about character interactions, character struggle, character growth. That's fun for me. So whenever I want to make a scene more fun, or I want to find a starting point, I begin with the most fun, with the most character-like struggle. Allow me to leave you with one particular statement, okay? And it is the idea that someone's backstory, like your backstory or the backstory of your characters, is only meaningful in the present. But the present is always moving, and the backstory is always growing. So there comes up an idea, a moment, if you may, where telling somebody a character's backstory becomes slightly meaningful when their backstory will continue to grow as they do things, and as they take actions, and as things keep happening to them. So why is it that backstories are seen as something set in stone? I don't think they are. The backstory is the baggage, is the suitcase that you carry with you, and what is inside of it tells the world who you are and what has happened to you and how you view the world. And one last thing, allow me to summarize one more time in case that somebody is still out there unclear about how I feel about things. I begin stories in one way, because I talked about in medias res, in the middle of things, is starting at a point of action, of urgency, so the reader is curious. Yeah, sure, that has happened, and I've also started stories with backstory. I've started stories with a character telling us how they got here. And what I want you to remember is that there are no hard rules for writing, even your own books and your own style, because things change and every book is its own different, individual, and entirely unique and terrible beast. Justine's Blood begins with Annabelle talking a little bit about her life, and talking about the day she met Justine, and then we skip over like 3 weeks later. That's just the way that book began. Again, so how do I begin stories? I literally lean back on my chair. I consider the narrator for this story. The person who's narrating, even if it is third person omniscient, someone is narrating the story. Even if it's a character the reader will never learn about, it is a character, it is a person with a voice, a style, a way to speak, and they are the narrator. They are the storyteller. And I ask myself, how would this person begin the story? And things work from there. I always find a point, I always find something. And it becomes a little bit more, it becomes more magic than science, but I think books and writing is more magic than science. You have to go out there and see how things go and adapt to the madness that is the creative arts. But I think that's the fun of it, though. If it was if it was geometry, if it was chemistry, if it was cooking, if you poured in, a couple of protagonists and antagonists, 3 to 5 scenes and you got a plot, it wouldn't be as fun. There has to be variance to this, and I don't want you to worry too much about any of these things, by the way. I know that I've been really serious about how I feel about beginnings, but ultimately, all of these things can change. And I've had stories about how I chopped the first, page and a half of Justine's blood because it was boring, and there's a lot of editing to be done later. Just go out, write, and even more than anything else, seek to enter the mind of the narrator and tell the story as the way that narrator would share that story. But yes, this video has gone on long enough and I've rambled way too much. Again, these videos are meant to be a little bit more casual, but I hope that if anything I've shown you my point of view and the way that I do things. And as always, I want to know how your week has been going. I'm going to be gone for a couple of days, but I will be back with another special vlog from Fanimecon. But let me know how your week has been going, how's your writing process has been, because you have the time right now. Take advantage of it right while I'm gone, because I'm going to come back running. And with a vengeance. So, let me know how you've been doing. Let me know how your process has been going. And if you have questions or feedback or thoughts of your own, please let me know in the comments below. And as always, I want to thank you for watching. Thank you for spending a little bit of your day with me. And I'll be seeing you soon. Mwah!